Hello and welcome to Daf Hashavua. My name is Yair Alon and I am an Israeli rabbi living in Brazil. You can find videos on my channel about the Parashiot of the Torah and the Daily Zohar, both in Portuguese, and our new projects Talmud Vibes and Daf Hashavua in English. Remember, all the videos have subtitles available in both languages. Check them out and enjoy. In case you missed our previous videos of this series, here is the link to the playlist. Make sure to watch it and let us know what you think of it, okay? And if you did watch it, thank you for coming back. As you already know, Bava Kamma is a part of the Talmud devoted to the discussions about damages inflicted to the property, whether such damage was caused by people directly, like theft and injury, or by people's property, such as an ox that ate the neighbor's crops, or a candle that fell onto something you were supposed to watch and started a fire, for example. So we continue our discussion on damages, exploring chapters 6 and 7, and more specifically Dapim 59 through 65 this week. In Daf 59a, our sages pose one dilemma. How do you calculate the amount to compensate for damages caused to trees when someone's animal ate shoots of figs, for example? The problem is these fruits are not fully formed fruit yet. So should the damage be calculated differently to, say, unripe figs? This is also discussed in 59b, where we read a peculiar story involving the sage Eliezer Ze'eira, who gets arrested for wearing black shoes. What? Well, apparently Jews were not supposed to do that back in Talmud times, and now the only way he has to escape this tight spot is by proving he is a Torah scholar. He manages to get away with it by teaching the guards about the solution to the dilemma we just mentioned, telling the story about someone who stole dates, the fruit, flowers, and well, why is this a dilemma? Because these flowers, like we said, would have become dates, wouldn't they? So, should this thief pay for the flowers or for the ripe fruits? Eliezer Ze'eira gives the guards the answer. He says the court appraises the damage relative to a similar piece of land 60 times the size. The guards do not believe him, but they check with another important sage, and so they discover that Eliezer is indeed a wise and learned gentleman, and he saves his neck. Good for him, right? Another discussion that takes place in Daf 59 is about different qualities of crops in the same land, good ones and bad ones. So suppose my goat, Azazel, goes into your land and eats your crops, but you have good quality produce and bad quality one as well. Which should be the standard for the payment of these damages? Should I pay you for the better quality crop or for the cheaper stuff? And what about the burden of proof? You say my goat ate the good stuff, and I say my goat Azazel only ate the cheap stuff. Who should the judges believe? Long story short, they end up deciding that you should calculate the damage based on a land 60 times greater, as we just saw in Eliezer Ze'eira's lesson. Anyways, on Daf 60, we see a situation where someone tries to circumvent Shabbat prohibition of working by letting the wind do the work for him. In other words, instead of actively separating the grain from the chaff, this crafty person would toss the grains into the air and let the wind blow the chaff away. Smart, right? Yes, but illicit. This is one of these scenarios where people try to convince themselves and those around them that the laws do not apply to them, or that they are not breaking the law, usually by finding cunning, fraudulent solutions. Well, the law in Judaism does not tolerate subterfuges, right? Actually, that should be the case for any kind of law, be it in Judaism, be it in civil, secular, modern law. And in this line of thought, this same Daf 60 will discuss the strictness of judgment and the world, and the sages will bring the topic of plagues and the angel of death. In one of the most impactful sentences of Bava Kamma, the Gemara states that Once permission is granted to this destroyer to kill, it does not distinguish between the righteous and the wicked. For this reason, then, there are some very interesting discussions on possible ways to avoid being taken by the plague, and what are the safest ways for you to go about your business without coming face to face with this particular angel. By the way, according to this daf, not even a synagogue can be considered a safe place in time of plague, unless there are children there, or a minyan, that group of 10 adult men. Oh, one more thing, dogs. If dogs are playing, it's all fine. But if dogs start barking for no reason, there might be a chance plague is around and, God forbid, you be attacked. Well, DAF 61 moves to a different topic, fortunately. No more angel of death stuff for now. This part concentrates on discussing fire damage and the limits of responsibility. In 61a, for instance, the sages inquire about different situations involving fire that spreads to the other side of a fence, to the other side of a river or a pool, and into public spaces too. 61b, on the other hand, will reflect on the distance one can be held responsible for fire. If fire tends to spread kind of indefinitely, should there be a limit to one's responsibility? Another important discussion goes back to the notion of concealed object, which had already been discussed in previous dapim. So if I accidentally burn your sack of wheat when I should be safeguarding it, am I liable to pay for something you claim you had concealed inside this sack? This discussion continues on DAF 62, where the issue of abusing permission gets elaborated. How so? If I give you permission to, for instance, keep your sacks of wheat in my property, can you conceal, say, a golden ring inside the sack without letting me know? What if the sacks get burned by an error on my end? Will you blame me for the ring? I only gave you permission to keep your wheat in my property and not something else, and not definitely a golden ring. Do you see? Two problems arise here. First issue is, how can judges know for a fact that you are telling the truth? Someone could simply claim that they had concealed something inside that sack of wheat that I accidentally burned. Anyone could say they had concealed anything, a valuable painting or lots of money bills, even though they didn't have bills back in Talmud times, right? Or a document, but how can anyone know? Second problem, if you went and concealed this valuable item in my property without my knowledge, you did so without my permission, right? So why should I be liable to pay for any damages caused to it? I must rightfully pay for your wheat, okay? Everyone agrees to that, because this is the only thing I agreed to accept into my safekeeping. Does that make sense? Now, DAF 62 will introduce a discussion that will go on for quite a long time, taking large parts of the subsequent dapim as well. Our sages are discussing theft and the compensation for it. I mean, someone stole something and then the thief was caught. He can't return the stolen item for some reason. He will have to pay. But how much? There is a general agreement that a thief must pay double whatever was stolen, except if it concerns oxen or sheep. In that case, compensation must be fourfold for sheep and fivefold for oxen stolen. Up to here, no discussion. The arguments really start when the sages ask if there is any other thing whose compensation for theft should be four or fivefold. This leads to a discussion on how to interpret the biblical texts, as some sages are comparing thieves to bailees. In case you are not familiar with that word, a bailee is a person to whom personal property is delivered in bailment. It means someone is going to keep your stuff for some time, for some reason, but it's not legally theirs property. Both the time and the reason may vary. The point here is that some of the sages are defending that if you entrusted me with something that belongs to you, and I falsely claim it was lost or stolen, this lie is the same as stealing. Accordingly, the bailee should also pay double what was claimed as lost or stolen. But this opinion is not a consensus. And then this discussion will go on forever. Seriously, up to DAF 65, in fact. And all sorts of arguments will be used for one part to try and convince the other part. In 63b, the debate will involve analyzing the grammar and syntax in which the sentences were written. The debate analyzes, for example, articles. For those who like exegesis, hermeneutics, linguistics, and topics alike, go check it. By the way, linguistics is my original area of study. Just out of curiosity, I have a major in Hebrew language studies, and I have also studied other languages, especially Eastern ones. Amid all this grammar and syntax war, in DAF 63a, this debate about theft and bailees will be used by the Mishnah to teach about an hermeneutical argument whose structure is generalization, detail, generalization. In Hebrew, it is called klal ufratu klal. I must also highlight here that this is a very heated debate. We can surely imagine these gentlemen screaming at each other and hitting the table with their fists. Who said Talmudic discussion were boring? These guys are almost wrestling. How do I know this? Well, of the discussion which goes from DAF 62 all the way to 65, we see two of the sages exchanging these lovely sentences here. Rabbi Leah said to Rabbi Hanina, "May the merciful one save us from this opinion of yours." And Rabbi Hanina said back to him, "On the contrary, may the merciful one save us from your opinion." I think this is very interesting to see. Some people usually think of the sages as these larger-than-life beings, but they are also ordinary humans, like you and me. They get angry, and sometimes they make mistakes, and they fight, and they say harsh words to their fellow rabbis. But it is important at the same time to notice that they are fighting here to discover the truth of the Torah, and not for some selfish objective or some futile matter. That is what makes them special. Just to conclude this first part of the video, let me tell you what they accomplished after all this war. The conclusion was that a bailee that falsely claims he lost an item given to him to watch is different from he who falsely claims it was stolen, as the accusation that it was stolen may end up shedding suspicion on somebody else. So, in DAF 63b, the Talmud tells us that if the bailee confesses to the lie and admits he uses the item, he pays the value of the item, what is called principal, and an additional amount of 1/5 in compensation. Notice he doesn't pay twice or 4 or 5 times the value. Oh, he must also offer a sacrifice in the temple for having lied. If, on the other hand, he doesn't confess and gets caught because some witnesses proves his claim as false, then yes, he pays double payment. Well, that was a long discussion, but I hope you got the gist of the debate, and it was not exactly about thieves and bailees, but about refining the methodology to interpret the Torah and the Mishnah. Our sages are deeply concerned with finding the exact justice hidden in every word. That is surely an inspiration we can take with us. So, as you know, in this series of videos, DAF Hashavua, I present some of the most relevant aspects covered in our week, but nothing fully replaces the deep study of the Talmud. For every topic I mentioned here, there were many I had to leave out. Otherwise, this video would be 6 hours long. So, I would like to start our reflection this week by revisiting the story told in DAF 99b about the imprisonment of Eliezer Zeira. As we saw earlier in the video, Eliezer was arrested for wearing black shoes. According to the Talmud, that was not a Jewish custom at the time. Nevertheless, it was something that Eliezer wanted to do because he felt justified. He says he was doing that to mourn for Jerusalem. So my point here will be a little Talmudic. I will ask the question instead of providing you with an answer. To what extent is it necessary or even desirable to follow the customs and traditions? Are we prisoners of our past and traditions? This will sound a bit odd at first, especially coming from a rabbi and a Kabbalist. As you know, Kabbalah can be translated as that which is received by tradition, and therefore something deeply connected with upholding traditions. But my thought-provoking intention here is to tease you and make you think that when it comes to this, we Jews are standing on two legs. On one hand, or leg in this case, we hold to tradition, of course, and to what our forefathers taught us. We must honor that to the best of our understanding. We follow and keep our laws, our traditions, our minhagim, our customs. On the other hand, or leg, however, we are given a mitzvah by the Creator to co-create the world with Him. Therefore, Hashem is also inviting us to think differently and about new possibilities. It is no wonder that some of the most impactful minds in the history of philosophy and science are Jewish. We are challenged to create new things. Even in the world of Torah, sages are always trying to find new interpretations of the text, what is called Hidushim. So the human soul, and the Jewish neshama in particular, is always pulled into two directions. One of upholding and honoring the tradition and what is already established, but another direction of also looking forward to creating the new. Abraham created something new when he left Terach and his land Ur. Moses created something new when he left Egypt and his Egyptian upbringing. Shlomo, did something new when he created the temple, or David when he decided to build a house for God. Every new step forward may somehow challenge that which came before. We must not allow traditions to become bound in captivity. We must change when change is required. In other words, we can say that we always must find an equilibrium between tradition and changes. By confronting the customs, not on a whim, but on a well-grounded belief, Eliezer defies the conventions of his time. It was a tradition not to wear black shoes, but he changes it because there was a deeper meaning in doing so. So he does wear the forbidden shoes to express his understanding of truth and a deeper expression of soul, that of mourning for Jerusalem. His wearing black shoes doesn't change his core beliefs in truths of the Torah. It is not heretical, it is not a sin. In fact, just the opposite. His act is a reverence to the importance of the truth of Torah. Thus, having the wisdom to manage these two different impetuses within our neshama is something we all must try and learn. And this tug of war between these two forces is also connected to a different passage of this week's Dapim. In Daf 60b, Rabbi Tzchak Napacha tells us the story of a man who is married to two wives. One is very old and the other one is very young. The two wives take turns with their husband. The young one will pull out any white hair from her husband's head, so that he appears younger, while the older one pulls out black hair, so that he appears older, and the man ends up with no hair at all on his head. Rabbi Tzchak uses this story to talk about the conflicting requests from his pupils for lessons on halacha, law, and agadah, stories that explore ethics and theology. Do you see how this story is about the same topic? The old wife, representing tradition, will try and eliminate any new creation or novelty, the black hair, just like the black shoes Eliezer wanted to wear. On the other hand, the young wife, symbol of creativity, will try to eliminate all traces of tradition. And if we allow both to act unboundedly, we will end up bold and crazy. Both can act, okay, but within limits. This very same idea is expressed Kabbalistically in the dynamics between Gevurah and Hesed. While Gevurah pulls us towards separation and individuality, Hesed drives us towards integration and the collective. So, as I said, finding our balance and equilibrium is the key. It is not something easily achieved, nor is it something that we must do just once, but it is the key. This balance point, which in the Kabbalistic example is called Tiferet, beauty, will at times be closer to Gevurah, the individual, and at times to Hesed, the collective. So this is why I also said I am afraid there is no answer I can give you on how to accomplish this. And in parts because this is a personal answer, a subjective process. But rest assured, there are always clues on how to know if you are going for the equilibrium. And one of these clues is in the very beginning of Eliezer's story. The clue is, what is your intention? It will be the crucial factor to direct the results of your acts. Eliezer knew he was not abiding by the customs. Of course he did. But did he do it just to be cool or different? Just to show up and to startle others? No. What was his intention? To mourn for Jerusalem. He was innovating with the intention of honoring Hashem. In this sense, his intention was holy and pure. He was connecting the new to the source of all creation. This is the greatest Talmudic advice, this task of balancing the scales of tradition and innovation. Whatever way you proceed, make sure your intention is connected to Hashem with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Take all the examples I gave, Abraham, Moses, Solomon. They innovated, they broke with tradition, but always having God in mind, always trying to serve God and reach Him. It was never out of ego. It was never for personal reasons. It was never for social motives. Whoa, many deep reflections to take home now, right? And if you liked this video, please make sure to check also our other projects. And as I always ask you, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel that our video has moved you, please consider also becoming a member through the YouTube clubship here in the channel or through Patreon. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a fruitful week with your Torah and Talmud studies. See you next week. Shavua Tov.